في كل مكان، سلام من الله عليكم ورحمة منه وبركاته. العلاقات السودانية الأمريكية تتأرجح بين مد وجذر، لكنها ظلت على الدوام قائمة على التفاهمات المشتركة بين البلدين. العلاقات السودانية الأمريكية هي محور هذا اللقاء الخاص، أسعد فيه باستضافة كارولاينا شنايدر الناطق الرسمي باسم السفارة الأمريكية. كارولاينا مرحبا.
Marhaba.
Okay, we pleased to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Okay. Sudanese-American relationship have been a fluctuation along the way, but it is still representing a ground that built on the mutual understanding between two countries. Welcome, Carolina Schneider, the official spokesman of the United States Embassy in Sudan.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Carolina, firstly, how did you respond when you get the news about working in Sudan?
Well, let me begin by saying to all the viewers, I hope they had a wonderful Ramadan and Eid Saeed, Eid Mubarak. When I first found out that I was coming to Sudan, I was very happy. I've been interested in Sudan for quite some time, and so I had tried very hard to get a posting here. I find Sudan fascinating in its history and its bridge between the Arab world and the African world. Sudan is the best of both.
Okay. There's a difference between you hearing about Sudan and actually when you came to Sudan?
Sure.
Yeah. What can you find different between?
You know, I had read that the Sudanese people were very warm and hospitable, but reading about it and experiencing it are very different things.
Really, yeah.
I thought that when I got here, people would hear that I was American and maybe wouldn't like me because I was American, and I found it to be quite the opposite. Everyone I meet, from people on the street to people who welcome me into their homes, are so kind and generous, and so that was a bit of a surprise.
Okay. What did you have in mind about Sudan back then?
Before I came here?
Yeah.
Well, I had read about the history of Sudan, and it's a very complex history going back to the time of the Nubians, and then modern history and the independence of Sudan and things that have happened in recent decades. So I was looking at it from a historical, political, economic standpoint, but because my work is more based in education, culture, media, professional exchanges, once I got here, I was able to see so many different segments of society and all different kinds of Sudanese people, whether they are artists or teachers or poets or doctors, and so every time I made a new friendship, I learned a little bit more about Sudan.
Okay. It's easy to make a relationship between Sudanese family, or?
I think so, yeah. People have been overwhelmingly kind.
Okay. What did you have changed after you arrived and live in Sudan?
What changed in my view?
Yeah.
I think it just became more nuanced, more comprehensive. I was able to get out and travel around Sudan a little bit more. So I think my initial introduction was in Khartoum, and so I got to learn about Omdurman and Bahri and Khartoum. But then in the 3.5 years that I've been here, I've been to Al Fasher, Jenaina, Sennar, Port Sudan, Obaid, Nahud, up to the pyramids in Merowe. So I've been able to get out and about in the country to a large part of it. It's sometimes a challenge to travel, but getting to see people in the smaller villages and see people in east and west and north and south, it's really been a pleasure.
Okay. Caroline, Barack Obama in the history say, if you wanted to test a man, give him power. What can you say about that?
If you want to test a man, give him
Give
power.
him power, yeah.
That's a great quote.
Yeah.
It reminds me of another great American, Frederick Douglass, who said, power concedes nothing without a struggle. So I think it's interesting to see what people do with power, but I think all men and women have good in them and all men and women have bad in them, and so it's good to set up institutions and checks and balances so that people aren't tempted towards corruption or abuse of power. So structure and institution is also very important.
I think you mean how can you, the powerful, I think Obama, you need to say the powerful, it must be good stride.
I think about it maybe in terms of when my country first got its independence from England, as did Sudan. they wanted to appoint George Washington to be king of America.
Okay.
And he said, no, I will be the president.
Yeah.
And there will be checks and balances on my authority so that I don't have too much power. So for example, in the US, we have our executive branch, our legislative branch, and our judicial branch. And that balance of powers is designed so that no one entity gets too powerful.
Okay, Caroline, what kind of difficulty you have faced in your first days in Sudan?
Kind of difficulty.
You're facing more difficulty in Sudan, I think. What can you view?
I think just learning the subtleties. There's so many layers in Sudanese society, right? You have the family layer and the collegial work layer, and you have tribes and religion and political party and geography, and there's just a lot of nuance to the society. And so I think trying to understand that and make sure that I wasn't doing anything that offended anyone and that I was paying attention to the sort of social cues, it's always a challenge in a new place.
Okay. What can you say about the YALI scholarship in Sudan?
The YALI, or Young African Leaders Initiative, is a program that sends people from Sudan and all over Africa to the United States for a 6-week academic and professional
6 weeks.
6 weeks at a U.S. university or company or NGO. And then all of the YALI fellows come together in Washington, D.C. for the Mandela Washington Fellowship Conference. So now you have 1,000 of the best and brightest of Africa coming together to look at some of the biggest challenges that the planet is facing. So these are all sorts of environmental, social, economic issues where they can brainstorm ideas and action plans for what they can do back in their countries. This year, in 2017, is the first year that we've opened YALI to all 3 tracks for Sudanese.
Okay. What part of program you can education in this program, YALI?
Sorry?
What kind of program you study what in this program?
So depending on your field of experience, there's civic leadership, so people who are involved in their community. There's business and entrepreneurship for young business people. And then there's public management for people who are in sort of official federal government, state government, city government, people who are public managers.
Okay. How can you want to select this leadership for this program?
How do we pick people? It's an online application. And so for this year, we had 15 openings for Sudanese. And I think we received well over 850 applications.
15, all Sudanese.
Yeah, but that's better than last year. Last year we only had 5, so this time it was
good.
3 times as many, and we'll keep fighting to get the numbers up even more. But we had well over 850 people applied, and so first we narrow it down to a smaller number, then we do interviews with those people, and then we send it to a panel to review. So the 15 people who will be going to America, and they're heading out this week actually, they're so impressive. It's men and women from all over Sudan in a variety of fields. You have teachers and doctors and engineers and people who are active in their community.
I think it under 35 years.
Correct.
What the point of view of the 35, under 45 or 35 age?
I think it was an attempt by the Obama administration to invest in the future leadership of Africa, taking those people who at a very young age are already demonstrating leadership and giving them the tools and the network and the confidence so that they can grow and expand and hopefully tie the continent together even more closely so that you have people in Mali and Mauritania and Sudan and Cameroon can all share ideas and brainstorm and look at common challenges. So I think it's a great program, and I hope it yields a lot of results.
Africa is young, and Africa is rapidly transforming.
It takes to build an African agenda around science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It takes to create a Pan-African platform for young scientists to promote and facilitate innovation, science, and technology.
Well, NEF is a great platform in terms of, gathering the best minds and the best African scientists from across the world.
I support NEF because it represents an outstanding model for providing educational opportunity in STEM areas.
Moi, je crois que le plus grand défi, c'est d'arriver à mettre en place un écosystème dans lequel la notion de recherche excellente aura sa place.
What I believe we need to do is really to grasp the opportunities that are being created.
The Robert Bosch Foundation will stay with you and will continue our support for this great African initiative.
We believe that we need to be inclusive of women and underrepresented minorities.
Nous nous engageons à accorder une priorité à l'orientation des femmes vers l'estime afin de réduire les disparités de genre.
We are looking forward to welcoming you to Kigali for the next forum in 2018.
أنا ماشي السنة دي أمثل السودان في يالي Mandela Washington Fellowship. This is a great responsibility and a great honor and a great commitment, and I hope that once I go and I meet leaders from all over Africa and network with those leaders, that I can take good practices.
I want to travel to the US and attend the Mandela Washington Fellowship Program because I want to establish a non-governmental organization which is meant by educating youth and giving them transferable skills that they can use to better help their future.
I will be one of the few 15 representing Sudan in the Mandela Washington Fellowship in 2016. I'm looking very forward for this experience. I'm looking forward to not only the academic experience and the professional experience, but I'm also looking forward to meet with young African leaders from all over Africa to discuss issues that are facing us as Africans and things that I can bring back and work with in Sudan.
Mrs. Caroline, you can find different institutes in Sudan for language. Why not you cannot find American Institute to study language in Sudan?
It's a good question. I would love to have the number of teachers and resources that, for example...
More Sudanese study in America and come back to Sudan.
Well, we want both, right? We want people going to the States to study. We want Americans coming to Sudan to study and to teach, both. And then we want people who are able to go to local schools and learn English. So we have worked a little bit with some private English teaching institutes to try to help give them better resources. But we've also been working a lot with the ministries of higher education and education, specifically through the Sudan English Language Teaching Institute or Sudan Center for Languages, CELTI, SUNICEL, to work on teacher training for English teachers in the public school system, so that people are learning at a younger age. They're learning maybe more sophisticated style of English. So
we cannot find, Minister of Education in America. How can care about the education in Africa or in Sudan?
So yes, you're absolutely right. In the U.S., we don't have a Ministry of Higher Education.
Really,
We have a Ministry of Education, but it's very small and limited to the kindergarten through 12th grade. But for the university level, it's really been sort of devolved out to the states and out to the universities themselves. So we have almost 5,000 universities and colleges in America. And a lot of those schools offer
governmental or private?
A mixture. So for example, we have 50 states in America. Every state has a public university, like Sudan. But then there are lots of private institutions as well. These institutions offer their own scholarship packages. So a lot of times people say, I want to go study in America and I want to go to Harvard because it's got a famous name. And we say, that's great, you should try, but also look at smaller schools, look at schools that are in more rural areas, look at schools that are offering better. So there are a lot of online, it depends on what you want to do, right? If you want to be a nurse, you want the #1 nursing school. If you want to be a farmer, you want the #1 agricultural school.
It depends on the college.
It depends on what you want to study, right? So there are things like the Peterson's Guide that people can go to. They can go online if they have internet. There's also hard copy books where they can find out a little bit more about how to pick the right school for them.
Okay.
And we have an office at the embassy that's the Education USA office that can help people if they're interested.
During 3 years in Sudan, okay, what you view about Sudanese characters?
I think the Sudanese people are very kind, very generous, very hardworking. I'm just always continually impressed with the young people that I meet who are trying to make their communities better. The Sudanese women that I meet, I think that women are the backbone of every society, and I think that women in Sudan are brilliant and hardworking and very supportive of their goals. It's just a very rich society. And I think, like the United States, it's very diverse. You have people of all different ethnic, racial, religious backgrounds, and I think in diversity is strength. And so I see us similar in that way. The United States is very much a country of immigrants and different ethnicities, and that's a strength that makes our countries beautiful, I think.
Okay. You stay here more than 3 years. It's easy to make a relationship between Sudanese families and Sudanese characters?
I think so, yeah. People have been very welcoming and warm to me and to all of my colleagues at the American Embassy. We've done a lot of dinners and weddings and gone all over Sudan outside of Khartoum and met people of all different kinds, especially during this past month of Ramadan. You know, we get out throughout the year, but Ramadan...
We have 2 iftar in Ramadan, I
We have way more than 2, way more than 2. So Ramadan is very special to us. We do a lot of programming. We invite people for iftars. People invite us to iftars. We've done the food drives.
What do you want to say when are you making iftar in Ramadan?
What's that?
What do you want to say in iftar in Ramadan?
I think Ramadan is a very special time to think about those who are less fortunate than us, to be grateful for what we have, to meet new people and make new friends, to reconcile where we've had struggle and fighting. It's a time to be grateful for your community and to reach out.
I like this word, new people.
Yeah,
Okay.
So I think Ramadan is the perfect time for that. There are unlimited opportunities to build friendships, overcome challenges. It's a wonderful time of year.
Okay. Caroline, you do not think that Sudanese people, you have suffered a lot because the American sanctions?
We get this question a lot. So you may know, you may have read that the Sudanese government and the American government have been working over the last
because
over the last year, but even longer than
you
that.
are study, different Sudanese people. You are study, you are suffering for the inaction, really.
So for quite some time, we've had what we call carve-outs or general licenses within the sanctions that will hopefully alleviate these sorts of concerns. So there have been exceptions for health, for agriculture, for education, and for telecommunications. But even beyond that, President Obama made an announcement in January.
Mrs. Caroline, you don't think about Sudanese people have suffering a lot because the American sanctions?
We hear both. So we hear some people say, drop the sanctions immediately. We hear some people say, keep the sanctions on. I will say that over the last several years, we've had exceptions to the sanctions to try to alleviate some of the strain on the Sudanese people. So for several years, we had exceptions for health, for agriculture, for education, and for personal telecommunications. But even better than that, over the last about the last year, the Sudanese government and the American government have been engaged more. We've been talking more. For several years, we didn't talk to each other. We didn't have the hard conversations that we needed to have to try to come to a resolution. So this increased engagement led to President Obama coming out in January with the executive order lifting the sanctions. So that was a very, very positive step forward in the bilateral relationship between the United States and Sudan. So hopefully that addresses some of the concern.
Okay. Mrs. Caroline, what the possible direction of removing Sudan from the list of terrorist countries, as well remove the economic sanctions?
So those are two very different things. They sometimes get intermingled, but lifting sanctions permanently is one issue, and removing Sudan from the state sponsors of terrorism list is another. I think on the first,
I know it's a hard question.
Yeah, no, but it's a good one.
Yeah.
So the first part on sanctions, like I said, we've made significant progress. Our two governments have been talking at a very high level. Our foreign minister, your foreign minister, President Trump recently saw His Excellency Taha in Riyadh. There's been an increased engagement for the last few months, and so this led to the lifting of sanctions in January. My hope is on July 12th or mid-July, there will be a decision.
All Sudanese hopes that.
Yes, yes, and we're all hoping for the best.
Really,
So what will happen is that our Secretary of State or Foreign Minister will submit a report to President Trump about what are the conditions in the engagement, has the engagement plan been successful, and then President Trump, he's a new president, and he'll have a tough decision to make, and we'll keep working together regardless of what that decision is. I think that we've proven over the last few years that talking is better than not talking, and engaging is better than not engaging. And so hopefully, not even hopefully, I'm convinced that the relationship is stronger and will continue to become strong. On the question of state sponsors of terrorism list, that's also something that we're talking about constantly between our two governments to try to figure out what is the criteria that needs to be met and how do we get there. So we'll see what happens. It's a discussion for our senior officials.
Inshallah. How do you look at Sudan's future with the current situation?
I think Sudan is a rich country. It's a big, beautiful country full of great human resources and great natural resources. It's got a strategic location geographically. You've got access to the sea. Sudan has the potential for the future to be a key regional leader, if it's not already. I think that the relations between the U.S. and Sudan are improving significantly. I'm very hopeful for the future. I do hope that the Sudanese people will find a way to resolve their conflicts through discussion and negotiation and political processes rather than military struggles. We, the United States, do not believe that there is a military solution to the conflicts in Darfur and the two areas. So I think there have been very positive steps in the last year or two to move towards political negotiations. So that's what we're supporting the African Union and Chairman Mbeki in the process to find a peaceful resolution, because I think that once you can overcome that challenge, the sky is the limit.
Okay. Mrs. Caroline, the Arab region have had a lot of cloud situation, especially after President Trump visited Saudi Arabia. How do you see the view?
Could you be a little bit more specific?
Yeah, cloud situation, yeah.
I think right now, I assume you're talking about what's going on within the Gulf countries. It's a really challenging time. What our Secretary of State has come out, our Secretary Rex Tillerson came out this week with a statement that I would refer you to. In general, we're hoping that the situation can de-escalate, and again, people can come to the table and talk and negotiate. We've seen that Qatar has been open to mediation, to trying to resolve what has driven a wedge between the various countries. So we're supportive of mediation and of fighting extremism, obviously. That's in everyone's interest. So.
Okay. Mrs. Caroline, we're going to the last. Okay, it is a good question. You have spent 3 years of active work in the project. Okay, what are the most important programs that you have done? in Sudan? Okay.
There have been a lot of different programs. I would say all of the programs that fall under the umbrella of youth and youth capacity building, because I really feel like investing in the next generation of Sudanese and Americans is the key to our future, right? It makes sense. And I think I heard that 75% of Sudan is under the age of 35. So that's a huge, huge percentage of the population. So I don't even think that they're the future, they're the present. And so giving young people the tools they need to find employment, to build their own networks, to improve their communities and build their country, I think is the best thing that we can do. So that's education, that's English language for Sudanese, Arabic language for Americans. Yeah. Sudan faces the same challenges that America faces in terms of really embracing our diversity. People of all shapes, sizes, colors, economic backgrounds, and coming together in a unified stance, because we are always stronger together than we are apart. So if I had to say one thing for Sudan, I would say embrace your diversity, embrace your variety, because it's a beautiful thing.
Mrs. Caroline, few hours, you want to be leaving the United States after you have completed your mission in Sudan. What are the things you wanted to do, but the time, having time?
There were a lot of things I would have liked to have done. There are a lot of places I would have liked to have seen, parts of Sudan, certain states that I didn't get to. Sudan has such a great, rich archaeological history, historical history, so there are some historical sites that I would have liked to have visited. I would have liked to have met more people. I mean, I met thousands of people in my time here, but I could meet more. But they say if you've dipped your toes or swum in the Nile, that you're destined to return. So I've done that. So hopefully I will come back someday as a tourist or a diplomat, or I'll be back.
Okay. Finally, Mrs. Caroline, what do you want to say for all Sudanese before you leaving the United States? The last question.
Yeah, what would I say to all Sudanese? I would say thank you. Thank you for a wonderful 3.5 years. Thank you for all the wisdom and guidance and humor that you showed me. I would say the U.S. and Sudan are more similar than they are different. So let's not give up on each other. Let's continue working together. Let's continue to bring our people together, both at a political level, but also at an economic level and at a cultural person-to-person level. Our scientists can be talking, our teachers can be talking, our athletes can be talking. We are the same. We want the same things for our children. And so I look forward to a stronger, closer relationship between our two countries.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Caroline.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
it's been a pleasure.
Okay.
Eid Saeed.
Eid Saeed. Eid Mubarak, inshallah.
Eid Mubarak.
Carolina arriving late, but claiming all the credit. Thank you, Mr. Carolina, for this interview.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to meet you, and it was a wonderful time to talk with you.
Thank you.